Today we're going to have a look at resiliency and what that means to your supply chain planning, how we can help you, how you can make good decisions, how you can get more insights on your supply chain planning, and it will help you to take decisions on sustainability, cost optimization, make the best informed forecast. So we did a survey on a number of organizations, a high number of organizations, and we asked them basically what drivers will create value for your business. And many of them answered the question with, well, we see ERP as a big step forward. That would gain us a lot of competitive advantage. What you, however, see is that 75% expect a high number of returns on that. The reality is that only 30% reaches that. So there is what we call a big gap in the middle, a big value void. And the question is, how can we improve on that? So today we'll start talking about basically 4 different topics. We'll start by having a look at the industries, having a look at the challenges that probably most of you will face from day-to-day basis, what kind of business impact there is. We then have a look at aligning demand and your operations. We take a dive into forecasting and using AI for your forecast. And we optimize the supply chain. And optimization means an end-to-end optimization based on cost, but could also mean something like scheduling. So doing a sequence for your manufacturing lines. And at the end, we have a wrap-up and maybe there's some time for Q&A. So let's first dive into challenges that we all see. And it's rapidly changing because I see now today more challenges that are not even on this slide. There's a lot of things going on with the trade and extra taxes in the US. And they disrupt our supply chains as well. Some of you have a market in the US. At the end, the cost is always down to the consumers in the US, and it might impact our demand over here as well. But there's many things happening. There's rising cost. There's labor issues. Typically there's islands. So it's difficult to collaborate in a company. We also see increases in customer demand, expectations. It's going to be more and more difficult. What they call proliferation, so more and more product variants that appear, specific customers. And that could lead to slow responses and suboptimal decisions sometimes. If you then see the effects that gives us, that could be effects on stockouts. That could be effect, on the other hand, on inventory obsolescence. It's something past the lead time and past the shelf life. So before we can even sell it, we have to waste it already. We end up with high inventory. We end up with long lead time sometimes. And not everybody is facing all troubles, but I think everybody understands what kind of issues you can have. If you then have a look at resilience, and this is by no means the definition of resilience, but I think that is what I would see as resilience. So it's in supply chain planning, it is how to adjust from disruptions. What you want to do is create a robust plan that can face a lot of disruptions. So you need to build something that is smooth and something that is adaptable when things go different than what expected. And you want to limit the impact that it has on your plan, because your plan was optimal, and every time that something happens, you want to try to stay as close to your optimal plan. Traditionally, people would plan with an ERP system, and they would plan with something like MPS or MRP. And that basically delivers your orders and delivers some form of plan within the company. If you would look at something for a supply chain planning solution, you would see different techniques over there. And you would see a whole lot of Yeah, basically an optimization, an improvement of your plans using the two together. I will try to explain what the benchmarks means on the right side. It all starts with a good forecast. If your forecast is good, then also the rest of your plans will be good. The forecast typically improves if you use better algorithms and better techniques by somewhere between 5 to 20%. Good difference per industry, of course. That then means that you can also align your safety stocks better. And it gives a better spread of your safety stocks for each one of the products. And that gives an inventory reduction. You have your stocks at the right place at the right time. If you have a good forecast, then also your supply plan starts to improve. And you can work towards a better value, a better OTIF towards your customer. So you have the products available when your customer needs them. If you then start scheduling a lot and you start improving the sequence of things and you know that you're producing them at the right space, at the right manufacturing location, your capacity utilization starts improving. And that gives you overall a reduction of time to plan. So all the things that you see over here are connected to each other. But there's also a downside, of course. Those typical projects, if you have an ERP solution and you want to link it to an external supply chain planning solution, it involves integration. And that is typically difficult. You need to send data, the other one needs to use it, and you need to send it back. That's typically not an easy task. It takes months to implement that. You have a full data set on one end, and you want to see everything on the other side. You want to have a complete picture. That means that you need to send everything at once. It's typically a batch-wise thing. But also on-prem, if you host your own solution, that's difficult. You need to keep up, and you don't have the benefits that you have in the cloud. And in the cloud, you can harmonize processes together. Everything is always up to date. Everything is always the latest version. And it has highly trained people, on the other hand, maintaining all those systems. So you don't need to build up the knowledge yourself. And thirdly, it's typically quite labor intense to do things. You need to decide yourself, am I going to run it daily, weekly, is it monthly? And that leaves you with a misalignment between the systems. So what we are looking at is an integrated supply plan. We start from a high level. We start with what we call an S&OP cycle. We try to balance supply and demand. We have a look at our product portfolio. We have a look at budgeting. We link it to financials. And then we go into enterprise planning. And enterprise planning is basically all the orders that you maintain, all the manufacturing orders, all the purchasing orders, all the distribution orders. On top of that, and it's now in the bottom, you can see that you want to optimize your network. You want to create the best capacity plan and the best scenario plan that gives you an optimal inventory on all products. All those plans are shared in the business. Everybody works on the same orders. Everybody works on the same plans. And we have a high quantity, basically, of AI in there. So there's what we call manufacturing, or more like AI to calculate things. So to get the best sequence, to get the best forecast, to get the best overall supply plan. And there's also things like Gen AI to get you the best information on your plans and schedules. So let's first dive into how we can align demand and operations. There's a lot of things important for aligning that on a high level, but more the strategical level. first of all, your demand. Was what I sold last time, was that the thing I expected? We have a look at supply. Did supply everything according to what we expected to be? Was quality good? We have a look at inventory. Is it still on track? We link it to budget and have a financial reconciliation. But the most important one is, how am I doing on performance? What's the KPIs? How are they evolving? All those decisions and all those assumptions that you take in here are typically registered. And next month, we have a look at what we thought last month was the assumptions and the decisions. The most important one is not on here, it's on the next slide, is you want to have sign-off on those plans. So everybody in the business should try to follow those same plans. And that's basically a circle that you go through. So it's a process of first have a look at your budget. How am I doing? Am I on track? You financialize everything. We have a look at products. Are there new products? Are there products dying off? We have a look at our demand. Do we need to organize promotions? We have a look at sales and a stock policy. And we then have a look at our supply. How does that balance with each other? Do I need to organize something in production? Is it time to organize some CapEx for capacity improvements? And we balance them. And balance can mean it's two plans that you balance, but it can also be multiple scenarios that you balance. The most important one is everything is registered, and you want somebody in the business to say, well, I believe in this plan, and this is the one we're going to execute, so that everybody is on the same path. Let's dive into forecasting then, because that is where it all starts. You need to have a good forecast that uses real-time data and AI. So forecasting these days is quite common. Everybody can make a forecast. What we believe is that our Infor systems can generate proper orders, and we can follow those orders, and can bring us the proper forecast, basically focusing on Infor systems. That gives you the possibility to build something which uses all data from the ERP system. And we can get even more data than what a best-of-breed supplier could do. So we could build something that is tested and out of the box, and you can implement in minutes. We know what fields there are on the ERP side, and we know what fields we need to populate on the forecast side, and we can benefit from each other. Today we have a cloud-native solution. That means that both the ERP and the demand forecasting are in the cloud. It doesn't run on-prem anymore. And that brings you a lot of scalability, because you're not integrating full data sets, you're integrating differences between the orders. So if there's an order update, I know immediately on my forecast what starts changing. So you can really follow your evolution inside your forecast. Of course, you want to build in something which is stable for a bit of time. Some customers want to build in some sort of, what do you call that? A harmonization cycle, and when they said this forecast is good, then a consensus forecast, then we go over to the next phase. The other thing is it's managed by exception. So the typical company has hundreds, some have thousands of products and locations and customers. Those are already quite big, but nowadays you also see that the number of algorithms that you can run is so huge. So we try to manage by exception. Where can I spend my time wisely in order to make the difference? So let's first dive into, oh, sorry for the mix-up on the right side, but so it gives you that live integration, brings you scalability. You support a lot of products, and only the differences are sent from left to right. But that also brings you sort of a digital twin. That brings you the near real-time visibility. So you can always see that your forecast is accurate. Let's then dive into the world of AI. What you see nowadays is that there is maybe 70 different algorithms or combinations of algorithms, way more than you can manage to do in a spreadsheet. And some of the products use method A, some of the products use method B. And every time that can change. Every time the forecast runs, that can change. So we have machine learning in order to select the best one. Which is the best forecast that we can use? Which is the most fitting method in order to do this forecast? So it's used for forecast enhancement, but also used to train our algorithms. In the end, we store everything, so we can always go back and have a look on, did we make the right decision? Was that forecast best? And that leads to a system which is basically the two worlds together. I try to prevent all sorts of screenshots, but in this case I thought it was really important to show you a screenshot. On the left side you see a forecast. And you can see that we have some sort of a hierarchy on the left side. You see your products, you see your products per customer group and then per customer. You can see it graphically moving forward, trends, etc. And you have all sorts of panels on the right side. So you can see what happened on your forecast and why this was good and how much we expect that the change will be. On the right side, you see your ERP information. So you can now link those two together. So almost those two systems are no longer integrated. They use embedded information of each other. So we don't need to configure integrations. We just need to take the right decisions in the setup process, which takes you really something like half an hour. And then the system configures itself. And we can hop from one product into the MRP of a certain product, or we can hop into a custom order of a certain product. That also gives you a lot of additional possibilities and additional areas in terms of extra fields that I can use. You can just select from a wide variety of fields, and if person A in your organization wants to aggregate by customer group. Person B wants to do it by postal code. And just two examples. You can set everything up for each individual. We can give them access rights to a part of the data set, or visual rights to a part of the data set, or even some data sets are unavailable to a certain person. And that brings you a lot of cost savings. You get the best forecast, and it really makes you reacting on demand changes that everybody has. Well, what happens now if we have our best demand plan? So you want to use your demand plan in order to take the best decisions. So decisions like, where should I produce something? Should I make or buy? And the big thing in there is that you make feasible plans. And feasible plans is something like, I can execute those plans. I don't go over my maximum capacity, or I stay within my boundaries of my supplier. Typically, that's cost optimization. So what is better, A or B? But nowadays, you also see things like sustainability optimization. You see something like, is it better to use facility A or facility B because there's transportation from A to B? We do this end to end. So we start with all our raw materials and have a look at all the forecast and custom orders that come in the end. And we do a lot of constraints in there. And that looks a bit like this. So we have the full supply chain. So we look at vendors, we look at our demand. Demand goes up and down, it can change. And we look at our production capacity, our vendor capacity, who can purchase what against what prices. We look at manufacturing, the costs that are involved, alternatives that are involved. We look at lanes, our transportation between sites. We look at capacities of our warehouse, a lot of constraints that are taken into consideration at the same time. But now, that gives you a lot of trade-offs. And that provides you a lot of choices on, should I do this or that? Should I make or buy? Should I do it now or later? Should I, if I have insufficient capacity, should I short sell on this customer or that customer? And that's typically a cost optimization. But nowadays, it can also include all sorts of penalties, artificial cost, sustainability, carbon generation. Many things are considered at the same time. Every industry is independent from each other. Every industry is different. So that will lead to a priority for each industry, which is different. Something like a brewery would do it different than somebody who is producing cars. Now, what we try to do is create a replica of your supply chain and create something which mimics real life. So we try to include as many of those factors that we have in real life, so that we're also providing the best purchase, manufacturing, and transportation plans. We link them to each other. We work on vendor management. We provide collaboration within the company and say, well, if we say yes to this extra production run, we also need to have the raw materials for it. Everything is connected to each other. We also have a look at some facilities do it different than other facilities. Some have a better efficiency, some have a lower cost, and that provides you a better output for your manufacturing. But everything is linked. So if you send something to that site, you need to maybe take something off because your capacity is insufficient. We also have a look at warehouses, at distribution centers, everything in the supply chain. The main thing we're optimizing on is what value there is, what customer performance there is for your customer in the end. We try to get as much planned as possible. So that is the main objective of those kind of optimizations. What we're doing is balancing costs and priorities. Those could be mainly on what you saw in the past. I want to minimize my cost. That was it started with minimizing cost, but nowadays also profit is more important. I see a rising thing on sustainability. We have scope 1, 2, and 3 coming. People need to report on how much carbon they basically buy at some point. Do I make the right decisions on how much carbon is involved in my product? We need to report on carbon. That will be a big focus in the upcoming years. At the end, customers are still centric. We need to optimize on the performance towards customer. We try to make then a plan that works for everybody. So we try to link everything together so that if you're working on manufacturing in a specific site, you have all your materials available when you want to do things. So we focus at the same time. And that gives you the resource optimization. In the end, you all want to do it to raise your KPIs and to get everything better and to get your key figure analysis. And you get integrated operations. not a single supply chain is stable all week, all day, or month. So you get changes. If you end up with a full end-to-end supply chain, that also means that you can see which areas are underutilized or overutilized. And you can see, if we have a change, how we can support that change. If there's an extra order coming in, I can immediately see on my supply plan, I've got everything up to capacity at this place, and I need to handle overtime in order to do that order. And that is really beneficial in terms of how you handle changes. It brings you a really robust plan, and you see the areas where you're hitting or almost hitting your maximum. That gives you a sort of built-in resilience. That gives you a built-in capability to see, if I accept this order or if that order goes away, I have a problem on that area. I can see that my stock is almost against my shelf life. I need to do something else. I need to organize a promotion in order to get rid of certain stock. I need to organize temporarily some external capacity. I need to organize maybe an extra warehouse for 6 months because I see problems coming in. We call that root cause analysis. So we have a sort of a network diagram, and based on the customer performance, you can immediately see where in the supply chain your issue is. And we also signal it with near maximum capacity issues. And that all brings the benefit for the customer that he knows his order will be okay. And you get on time in full for as much as possible issues. Then there is a next level, which is we know what we need to produce, and we now can go to a deeper level. If we know what let's say we need to produce for in a week, then you can make that even more detailed. You can add a sequence to it. And sometimes a sequence can make a huge difference. Is it better to produce it on line A or line B? But also, is it better to start with white and end with dark, or start with dark and end with white? And that can make a huge difference in the efficiency that you gain on your production line. I've heard some cases that you get an efficiency gaining of about 20 to 30%. That means that you can produce the same thing, or even more, with the same equipment. And just imagine what would happen in a large company like let's say a brewery. If you are able to, with that same brewery, to produce 20% more, and beer typically is water with some additives, you almost have free production with the same capacity equipment. And that is a huge efficiency gaining. What we do there is we try to increase the throughput, and we try to increase the on-time in full, be ready at exactly the point where the order is. We reduce waste, we reduce inventory, both in production but also in the warehouse, and we optimize our resources, our manufacturing resources. That gives you a lot of benefits to see it visually, to be able to convey your ideas to somebody in manufacturing and say, this is the best manufacturing sequence because of this reason. So some companies even have something like production scheduling inside their production hall just to visualize this is what's going to happen. If you start with this product and then switch over to that product, that's better than if you do it around. So, time for a little wrap-up. So the Infor supply chain planning tools, they assist you with a lot of capabilities. We try to make plans that are robust. We try to make plans where you can see where you have potential issues, how to react to those issues, and how to prevent inventory that is not used, how to prevent or how to deal also with long lead times and late deliveries, and get a better operational equipment efficiency. We do that basically with 4 tools. We do that with what we call demand forecasting. We try to link it to our orders. Orders come in live. There's a digital twin of those orders, and we create the best forecast. So we predict with the highest probability. Then if you have a good forecast, we can generate an optimal supply plan. And we can take into account all sorts of safety stuff, safety covers. We improve your visibility on your network and get the best and optimal spreading over your network. That can include all sorts of decisions, cost decisions, profit decisions, sustainability decisions. Everything should be feasible. We build in the capabilities to run scenarios, so you can compare plans to each other. To balance those two, we have a tool called SNOP, Sales and Operations Planning. We also call it Integrated Business Planning, but it's basically to perform the process of balancing supply and demand. So having a look at scenarios, having a look at your decisions, your risks, your assumptions, list them, and be able to go back into time and say, well, I took this decision knowing that, but it panned out differently. And also for manufacturing, we can do scheduling, production scheduling, and that is really popular in food and beverage, in semi-process industry. So production with tanks, production with pipelines, connected stages. There we can make a big difference if you change your sequence of your operations. I was expecting a slide that says, are there any questions?
Can you tell us a bit more about your plans?
Plans. So clients. There's a wide variety. Of course, there's food and beverage. Production scheduling came from a food and beverage perspective. And you can see that most often in chemicals, food and beverage. And that made its way until the other tools. So you can see that we're now popular still in food and beverage and chemicals, but also distribution, also even fashion starts to come in. Basically all the ERPs which are connected in an ERP, a cloud suite called M3. And I've got 5 minutes, I heard. Then I can see that those industries, they also share sort of the same kind of issues that they have, the same problems. Some of the issues are quite unique, but still everything is up to a certain level still generic. We can build specific models. We can tailor those models for specific industries. But I would say distribution, food and beverage, chemicals, fashion, that would be the most popular ones. If there's no other questions, then it is a matter of thanking you. Thank you for your attendance.